How did your parents react when you got hurt? When I was 8 and I broke my left arm falling off my bike, my dad took me to the garage and broke my right arm with a wrench to maintain balance, because he believed asymmetrical injuries would make me permanently deformed. My dad was obsessed with symmetry and everything. He made us chew the same number of times on each side of our mouth, and he'd count our steps and make us walk in circles if one leg had taken more than the other. He wasn't some perfectionist with OCD. He just liked controlling our bodies. He'd been a failed physical therapist who got his license revoked for experimenting on patients. Now we were his test subjects. He kept detailed charts of our body measurements and would rage if anything was even slightly uneven. The broken arm was my first ever serious injury, and it's what made Dad take his philosophy about symmetry to the next level. After the hospital put my cast on, he drove us home in silence. Then he took me to the garage, held my right arm against his workbench, and brought down a wrench. He said asymmetrical healing would cripple me for life, and this was the only way to save me. My mother stood in the doorway watching, too scared to intervene. The sound of my bone breaking was nothing compared to my screams. He drove me back to the hospital claiming I'd fallen again. From then on, every injury required a matching one. When my sister got a black eye from softball, Dad punched her other eye to match. When my brother scraped his knee, Dad took sandpaper to the other one. He kept his medical kit in the bathroom. Hammers, pliers, razor blades, all for creating symmetrical wounds. He had elaborate rules for each torture method. Burns required identical temperature and duration on the opposite side. Cuts needed precise measurement to match depth and length. He'd photograph our injuries with rulers for reference while recreating them. And he wanted us to react exactly the same for the second injury as we had for the initial one, more or less crying, and he'd go into a rage. But other than that, he was disturbingly calm about it, like he was pretending to be an actual doctor. He'd wear surgical gloves and explain the procedure like he was saving our lives, talking about bilateral healing and symmetrical recovery while holding a blowtorch to match a burn. He kept medical textbooks with made-up notes in the margins to show Mom this was legitimate treatment. My siblings and I did everything we could to hide our injuries from Dad, so we wouldn't have to put up with his torture. I superglued a cut closed rather than let him see it, and my brother walked on a sprained ankle for weeks. My sister covered bruises with makeup she stole. But Dad did daily symmetry checks, examining our bodies for any imbalance. Finding hidden injuries meant double punishment, the matching wound plus an extra one for lying, and that meant of course an extra one to match the extra one. When I was 16 and had an impacted wisdom tooth that had to come out, Dad said I needed the other side removed too, even though that tooth were healthy. The oral surgeon refused, so Dad decided he'd do it himself in the garage with pliers. That was too far. I locked myself in my room and refused to come out. For the first time in my life, I had an injury that wasn't symmetrical, and it felt like freedom. My jaw throbbed only on one side and I loved it. I barricaded the door with my dresser in bed, listening to Dad rage outside about permanent disfigurement. For 3 days I stayed locked in, surviving on hidden granola bars and bathroom sink water. My face swelled unevenly, and I stared at it in the mirror, amazed by the asymmetry. Dad slid medical diagrams under the door showing lopsided faces. Mom cried outside my room about my future, but I felt powerful. The pain was mine alone, not mirrored or balanced, just mine. When I finally ran out of food and had to leave my room, Dad was waiting. He'd been sleeping outside my door with his pliers. He chased me through the house trying to pin me down while Mom screamed at me to just let him fix me. I ran back to my room, but he started unscrewing the hinges. For the next week it was war. He'd ambush me every time I left my room or while I was sleeping. He removed every lock in the house so I had nowhere to hide. He started making my siblings help, promising to skip their next injury balancing if they held me down. My brother actually grabbed my arms while Dad approached with pliers and I barely got away. The house was a prison where every corner could hide Dad with his torture kit. After weeks of this hell, Dad was so sleep deprived and obsessed with fixing my asymmetry that he started seeing imbalance everywhere. That's when he noticed the neighbor's kid playing outside with a skinned knee. He lured the boy into our garage with candy, and the mother walked in to find Dad holding a cheese grater to her son's other knee. She called 911 immediately. When police searched our house, they found Dad's torture kit and his detailed journals documenting years of abuse. Dad was arrested and we went to live with our aunt, but I still flinch when I get a paper cut, waiting for someone to cut the other hand.